Hey everybody, welcome back to If You're Fat, Lose Weight. We have a great show for you today. We have Dakhil from The Athletic and Bleacher Report to talk all things NBA. We have Curtis Houck from NewsBusters to talk a little politics. And then we finish with Rapid Fire with Oliver Abelson. A quick thanks to Jamie Hinlin, who came on Tuesday to talk about addiction. Got a lot of positive feedback on that. If you haven't listened to that, check it out. And a little quick note for you. I sound a lot better at 1.5 speed. A lot of people talk about the length of these podcasts. They can't sit for 45 straight minutes, which doesn't make any sense to me. But if you want to speed it up, I sound a lot better at 1.5 speed, and so do all my guests. Thanks again for listening. And Gila, take it away. Welcome back to If You're Fat, Lose Weight, and we are honored to be joined by one of the great basketball minds in sports media. A man with terrific real NBA experience, unlike mine where I pretend to have any idea what I'm talking about. You can read him on Bleacher Report and listen to him at The Athletic. The very handsome Dakhil.
Lots of lies told in that very handsome part there. But yeah, I appreciate it.
That's not true. Anybody watching you on YouTube now will see that you're very, very handsome. You have a nice green screen behind you. And, you can't sell yourself short.
Behind me. Joel has to hide the whole mess behind me. Anytime somebody's like, can you put the green screen down? I'm like, no. You don't get to see how messy I am.
What do you got back there? Back there?
I got a whole bunch of just dog treats and then a wood paneling wall from the 70s that a funny story is the start of the pandemic early on. This is what video. Now we have to start doing video stuff. Mm-hmm. I go on somebody's show and they just spent the entire time killing me for the setup I had. I said, oh, cool. I'm going to put a green screen up. Nobody's ever going to see that again. So that's my deal.
I think it looks good. Yeah, it looks good. All right. Well, let's jump right in here. A couple questions for you to start here. So you worked as a video coordinator for the Clippers and the Spurs. Did you overlap with Vinny and Doc?
Yes. So I actually had two stints with the Clippers. So I started out with the Clippers, was there under Mike Dunleavy, went to Pop, and then went to the Clippers with Vinny right after the lockout for 2 years, and then had a year with Doc.
Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to get that right before I listed the coaches you worked for, but you did that. So tell us something that would surprise us about any of those experiences. Hate to put you on the spot.
I think the perception of Pop is that he's no fun, but really behind the scenes, he's just, he's all business. But when it's time, he definitely has jokes. My very first day with the Spurs, I didn't interview with him. I interviewed with James Borrego, who was the head video coordinator at the time, and Mike Budenholzer. And, so I never had met Pop, and I came late. I came after Summer League. My first day, the video room quietly kind of clears out, and Pop comes in looking for, pretending to look for JB. And, he just is like, oh, JB. I'm like, I turn around going oh, sorry, JB's not here. And he's like, well, who the hell are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm the new video assistant and all of that stuff. And he's just like, well, nobody told me. I'm the boss. Nobody talks to me. Nobody tells me anything. And he storms off. And I'm just turning around going okay, flying back to LA. I wonder if I can get my job back with the Clippers. And then he comes in and goes, I'm just messing with you and that stuff. But just Pop has a lot more humor side than people get to see.
Well, it's funny. You see him, to your point, you see him on the quarter breaks, and he just would rather be anywhere else than answering those two questions.
There could have been a more rude person.
Right. And then you see him after the games. Yeah. And yelling at the media. And you would never be able to coach. And this, you would never be able to be a successful coach if you couldn't connect with people. Right. And he's spanned the generations that, you and I have seen in our lifetimes. We weren't there for Wilt Chamberlain, but we saw from MJ to Kobe to the LeBron to this new generation. And he's been through all of them. And obviously Tim Duncan was a big part of it. But if he wasn't able to connect with every single character that walked through that locker room over the 20 plus years he's been there, he would have no chance. So the idea that he's some
just gruff.
Right.
It's fiction.
Yeah. It's always in on a good prank. If there's a good prank, he's in. He wants to be involved.
Yeah. So you do some very unique stuff online for the people that listen to this that don't know you. You nerd out on plays and have video talkovers, which, it's very good stuff. And for like people who are really into basketball, you should look Mo up on Twitter and follow him. He provides nice word, a lot of insight that you don't get elsewhere. And so I encourage people to check you out. Have you been approached by teams to get back in?
I've not, and I think part of that is because I may have said some stuff on podcasts before that have closes more doors than opens when you kind of just what is the team doing or whatnot. But generally, I don't even know if I want to get back in. If something happens, different story. But they also know exactly what they're doing. A lot of times, like in that sense, I'm not. What I'm sharing with the public is stuff I don't think the average person will catch, but that's stuff that insiders and things like that are already onto.
Yeah. Right. Well, they know what they're doing, but you still provide some good stuff. And, people probably a little more well-known than you, like Bill Simmons, Zach Lowe, for instance. I mean, Zach Lowe's providing to me, and he's a friend and I'm a big fan. Like he's not providing any information that these guys don't know already. But, what capacity would interest you if you were to get back in?
Oh man, that's a big question. I don't know. It would be interesting. I'd probably want to be more still on the strategic side with the coaches and things like that. I think the stuff I do miss from my time in the NBA is actually just the locker room and the camaraderie you have with the coaches and players and things like that. And the friendships you it's so cheesy, man. The friendships you make along the way, Joel. But it's that kind of stuff. In terms of a capacity with the team, I would be open to anything front office or coaching side. It would come down to who I'm working with and is this something that really is interesting to me and will have an effect. I'm not just there spinning my wheels and all of that.
Right. Well, you got a good gig going and you provide a lot of good information to the public. So, all right. Anyway, so let's jump in here to the NBA. Second half is upon us here, even though it's really the 3/4 mark is over. There's 20 games left here. Obviously the Eastern Conference got a lot worse with the departure of KD. Kyrie's departure to me likely strengthens the conference. But what intrigues you looking at the East as we start the quote unquote second half?
I think it's a 2-horse race with the Sixers kind of being the dark horse. I think that's the most interesting story to watch is can the Sixers kind of break through into all of that? Right now, it looks like Boston and Milwaukee. I don't have any reason to believe otherwise. And as awesome as Joel Embiid has been this season and the Sixers have looked really good, and, James Harden should have been an all-star. I thought he was really good this season, sure. And I'm surprised he didn't get voted in by the coaches. But you're watching this stuff, and the real question persists is, man, like, are they going to just flame out in the playoffs like they always do? So that's probably the most interesting story is, can this 2-horse race become a 3-horse race? And if it is, it's going to be the Sixers at this point.
Right. Do you believe in the Cavs at all?
I think they're too young. I think they're still learning here a little bit. I think the Cavs can win a playoff series. I actually kind of expect them to, depending who they match up with. But right. I think at a certain point, experience will kick in with these guys. And man, just not finding a wing player there that you could feel really confident in is still that hole for me. And as good as Okoro has been lately, I need to see it for much longer stretch for me to go like, okay, that's their guy.
Right. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think it'll be fascinating to watch. I mean, I hope we get the Final Four, to your point, of the Bucks, Celtics, Sixers, and Cavs. I'm also very interested to see if the Sixers can overcome whatever Harden has done in the past. He gets a really, really bad rap, most of it deserved. He's been in the playoffs a lot and had some good games, but at the biggest moments, he's consistently let down. And it's just a matter of, that's going to be the narrative until he changes it, really.
I mean, that's it. Exactly. I mean, just leaving last season, like, the ball didn't find me, quote, didn't land really right at the end of that playoff series against Miami, and you're like, come on, man. Like, this is the time here. This is probably your best chance right now to win a championship apart from that 20 games with Brooklyn where they had everybody healthy. I think this is that moment where you got to rise up here, and we're going to find out really what it's all about. Like, if he doesn't make it, if they don't make it to the conference finals, even, I think there's going to be a lot of changes in Philly.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that. I mean, I think Daryl has inherited and kept a lot of the people. He's kept a lot of the people he inherited, and that probably changes if they flame out here. I got to say just one last thing. Like, they are the most intriguing team to me, and I will be watching them a lot. And I absolutely hate watching them. It's like Embiid falls 30 times a game, and it's a lot of isolation. And Harden, I used to love watching, and he's lost the littlest burst, which to me, for whatever reason, makes it like less fun to watch. I don't know why, but they're the toughest team that I think that they've had, certainly in Philly. And so it should be interesting. Any Miami worries that they could crash the party or not really?
They just don't have enough shooting, and they don't, I'm sorry, Gabe Vincent being your guy, because Kyle Lowry has kind of fallen off. Like, I just don't think that's a winning combination there. I like the Kevin Love move. I think they probably make it in the top 6 in the playoffs. I think they kind of edge out the Knicks and avoid the play-in tournament. And I love Spo as a coach. I actually have a video coming out pretty soon on some stuff from Spo, but I just don't think they have the firepower at this point. And it's they're tough to count out, but at the same time, I'm looking at this team going like, man, this roster can't beat that. Can't really crash the party here again.
Yeah, they just can't score. Like, they just can't. And then we underestimate it, but then Jimmy Butler goes up another level, and if Bam's healthy, makes plays, and it's just, they are the toughest out of an of a not top tier team.
Well, that's what you said.
That's
what you said. The toughest out. Like, any team that draws them in the first round, like if it's Cleveland or Philly, it's just like, oh God, this is going to be a battle. Like, this is going to suck.
Yeah,
we're going to get bruised up. Like, this is going to be a tough series. Like, I don't think they'll get swept out of the playoffs or anything. It'll be a challenge for them, and I think that's the real interesting thing there, and that what gives them the fighters' chance there.
Yeah. I mean, I think to your point, if you're Philadelphia or Cleveland, my guess is, as much as they can manipulate the end of the bracket there, I think they will, to avoid them. If you can avoid them in the first round, even to sacrifice home court against one of the big, from 3 to 4, it's not really going to sacrifice home court. I think
you're not
you do
giving
it
up
if you
home
can.
court that much, right? Yeah.
So in the second round. Right. So, anyways, okay. So, gun to your head, who comes out of the East?
I'm still going to go Boston. I don't think Milwaukee has enough depth on the wings to really defend them. I know they picked up Crowder and everything, but I just think Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown will go another level. As good as that series was last year, and they didn't have Chris Middleton and all of that stuff, and the Bucks pushed them, I feel like this Boston team's ready to go even another level. And I'm not sure if Milwaukee really can get there at this point. But I still think it's going to be a tough series. I think it's just down to those two.
Yeah, I mean, if we can get those two teams healthy in the East Finals, I think that's great. And I agree, it's a long series. I would favor Milwaukee just because they have the best player. And he's just, Giannis is, I don't know what
freak,
you do.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to do. And it's on both ends. So it's not... It's not, there's no weakness, and he can't shoot, but he can still get you 50. And we've seen that. So, anyways, okay, moving on to the West. I mean, obviously a little bit more wide open. First, it would be NBA malpractice if I didn't ask you what do you make of the Suns?
I mean, I'm all in. I jumped in right away. I feel like they've, the Terrence Ross pickup in the buyout market was a nice little pickup for them.
Yes, underrated.
KD.
Yes.
Yeah. Adding KD, I think, was obviously right. Like, this was a team before that trade. No chance to me even get into the Western Conference Finals. I said, this team's done. Like, I'm over it. I'm out. They get KD, and I just feel like that really puts them in a level of championship level team there. And I know they've lost some depth there, and people have question marks about their defense. I think their defense is going to be sneaky good. I think they're going to be better defensively than people are giving them credit for. And you add in just how good that offense is going to be. Because just you have those 4 guys on the court: Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and then DeAndre Ayton. Like, that's just the amount of space DeAndre Ayton's going to get to play in off of just picking rolls and things like that, because you're not helping off KD. You're not helping off Booker. If CP's coming off the screen, you're in trouble. You're helping off the 5th guy, and all they got to do is make sure that guy can shoot. And Torrey Craig's shooting the ball really well. We know Terrence Ross can shoot. I know it very well because he dropped 50 on us when he was with the Raptors, when I was with the Clippers. I won't ever forget that. But they have a lot of talent there, and I think this is one of those things where I'm looking at them going, like, this team can really do it if they can stay healthy, which is a caveat for everybody. But we know their history and stuff, and can Chris Paul stay healthy for 4 series is a legitimate question.
Yeah, at his age, and I don't know. I think it's interesting. First of all, we've never seen a team, as far as I can remember, add the best player to their group with 20 games left and then win a championship. That would be unprecedented in NBA history. That being said, Kevin Durant, as odd as I find him off the court, he's probably the easiest plug and play superstar that I've ever seen, where you can plug him in any situation and he fits in. Like LeBron, you could say that about LeBron, but LeBron needs the ball to really, he's the point guard. Operating the chess match. KD, as we saw him in Golden State, he could be the guy, he could not be the guy, he can come off screens, he can play with the ball, he can play without the ball. He's just whatever. And to your point, Booker and Durant and even Chris Paul, once he gets going, like the 3 best shot makers, just shot makers. And the antithesis of the way the game is played now too is they're probably the 3 best mid-range shooters in the league. I mean, honestly, and they're all on the same team.
It's not
now.
even close.
So.
This is mid-range central, and that becomes such an important shot in the playoffs, even more than the regular season, when teams start trying to take away stuff. And I think that's a big aspect there that I think people are kind of overlooking in the addition of KD. Is just, this is a big playoff move in the sense of all of that. Like, the shots that are available to them are going to be there, and you're 100% correct. KD's the easiest plug-and-play player there is, because you don't have to change anything in your playbook. You might tweak a few things here and there or whatnot, but you don't have to change anything. Just from everything, he will just flow right into it and will be dominant in that aspect. One thing I'd say is, the one team this trade kind of reminds me of a little bit is actually the Paul Gasol trade to the Lakers. They didn't win a championship that year, but they went to the finals. And I feel like that was a team, again, at that time, no confidence this team was going to the finals. I mean, it was just off the summer where Kobe was demanding a trade and all of that. And then, they make this move and get Powell, and then they take off. I think this is really more similar to that than anything else. We'll find out, but I think that's something I kind of look at that analogy more. Yeah,
that's a good comp. Okay. Pelicans, Wolves, Warriors, Thunder are the 7 through 10 teams. You get the Blazers a half a game back. You got the Lakers 2 games back. Which 4 teams at least get into the play-in and maybe ascend past the play-in? Maybe you can make a case for any of those teams to ascend and somebody to fall. But what 2 teams drop out, and what 4 teams are in the dance?
Yeah, that's a real tough one there. I think it's because they're just so bunched up, right? Like, it's literally like, oh, you have a bad 2 games, you're out. It's that simple. Right. And we don't know much about Curry's injury still. I'm not sure when he's coming back or what the latest has been on that, but you're watching that stuff and you're wondering if they can continue to hold on with Curry out. Can the Warriors withstand it? I think the Lakers got better at the trade deadline. I still think it's going to be a little bit short. I think these other teams are going to be able to hold on. If one team's at risk falling out, I actually think it's the Pelicans, because this Zion injury is just getting so brutal here, in that I don't feel confident that they're going to have their full squad. And Brandon Ingram missed a ton of time. CJ McCollum was in and out of the lineup for a little bit. There's a lot of issues there. I mean, this was a team they were second, Joel, at one point in the Western Conference. Then they go on a massive losing streak. The injuries hit them. It won't surprise me at all. I mean, they're only a game and a half away from being out of the whole thing. So I think they are probably the team that would fall out. And I just don't believe in Portland. Wow. I get in trouble with Portland fans all the time. I'm done. We've done this so many times with them. We're going to build a contender around Dame, but you don't actually build a contender around Dame. You make these small minor moves that don't really change anything. And it's just, to me, they're still depending on a very small backcourt that has no defense. We've seen this for the last 7 years. First it was CJ, now it's Simons. So I'm not thinking they're going to make the play-in. If a team's going to jump into the play-in, it'll probably be the Lakers if the Pelicans fall.
Yeah, funny that you say that about the Pelicans. Just so I do every year. I bet a few, since I've been out of the NBA. I bet a few futures, like over under season win totals. And my biggest wager ever was the Pelicans over 45. Okay, at this year. Okay, and then literally, I would think December 29th, I was switching bookies, and I asked the new bookie to match what I had in the old one while also keeping. So I doubled all of my future bets purely based on the fact that the Pelicans were, like you said, 11 games over 500 and Zion was rolling. January 2nd happens 4 days later. The bookie agrees. January 2nd happens. The Pelicans lose 10 straight. And, so when you said that, I'm a little upset.
It hurts.
Emotionally.
It hurts.
Emotionally. I'm a little upset about what you just said. And I hope that you're wrong. And they played a little better towards the end. They won 3 of 5. They lost in LA. They're a very bad road team. But Ingram is playing better. And to your point, CJ is actually getting healthier. To me, it would be also the Blazers, and I think the Thunder at some point are going to try and start losing here. That might be wishful thinking, though.
I don't think with
because the SGA is just too good.
I think this is, this is the year for them to really just start making the play-in tournament and start building that ascension. SGA's first-time All-Star finally getting to that level, and he's been awesome and averaging 30 points a game and everything that he's doing.
Yeah.
I think at a certain point you have to start playing games that matter with these young guys. And I think that's an important, they need that experience level. I know SGA got a little bit, but Giddey doesn't have any games that he's not used to the games mattering after the All-Star game. You have a lot of these guys. I think they need to start developing that. I mean, sure, it'd be nice if they can go get Wembanyama, right? Or even Scoot Henderson or something like that. They have to do a whole ton of losing and hope those other teams do some winning. And those other teams have no intentions of winning. So, I mean, I think it wouldn't be smart at that point. I think the experience right now of getting into the play-in tournament and playing games that matter in March and April is more important for the Thunder. And I hope they don't start trying to tank games.
So basically what you're saying, it's more important for them to play in the play-in game than get the 10 pick when they get the 16th pick, basically is what you're saying.
I mean, they have so many draft picks coming at this point anyways.
Yeah.
I feel like they're at this point where look at the Phoenix Suns. They go to the bubble and they make that run in the bubble and they don't make the play-in tournament, but that built the run for next year. That showed promise for them. The Memphis Grizzlies kind of climbing up the ladder slowly but surely. Those things matter. And I think the longer you delay that, the harder it gets at that point with the current crew that you have. And I think they need to start winning. And I'm glad they're doing it this season.
That's a good point. It's a really good point. Okay. Do you believe in the Nuggets?
Yes and no. I think they got a lot of the talent. I'm just concerned about their defense, and in particular in the playoffs. I know the defensive numbers and everything have gotten better through the course of the season, but you and I know the playoffs are such a completely different beast. And when they're playing teams that are going to say, hey, we're going to make sure we get Jokic switched onto our guards and have to have him defend in space, he's not going to do well in that instance. And I think that's the problem for them with what they have. And I think those are the issues that they're going to have to figure out. And I don't know if they have an answer for that. And, if I'm the other team, I'm putting Jamal Murray and Jokic in pick and rolls the whole time because that's two of their worst defenders. Oh, you're going to throw MPJ out there? Cool. I'll put him out there as well. These are guys that aren't known for their defense. And even though Jokic has gotten better defensively, he hasn't gotten better on the ball against guards. And I think that's going to be their biggest weakness come playoff time. And I think teams will really pick on them at that point. I still think they can go to the Western Conference Finals, just depending on the road they get, but I don't know if they're a championship team.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I tend to agree. I think Jokic goes up another level defensively, just in his effort in the playoffs. I think that Jamal Murray is starting to play better, and he's looking like he's what is it now? 2 years removed from that injury, and he's finally starting to look like the guy before the injury, which I think bodes really well for them.
I think he's back. Like that's you've watched him in enough close games now. I feel like he's this is him now.
Right. It's going to be interesting because we'll see. But there is a scenario where they meet the Suns in the West Finals, and it's kind of like continuity versus kind of throwing it together, and let's see what happens. That would be fascinating to me. But okay, how about the Kings, Clippers, Mavs? 3 different teams. Just give me your quick bullets on those 3 teams.
If you had asked me 3 days ago, I would have been like, "Oh, Clippers for sure." But now that they've added Russ, I'm like, "This thing's a disaster." I think that's a massive mistake for them. With that, I think between those 3, I actually like the Kings. I think they're a more formed team. Listen, the Dallas Mavericks are going to score a ton of points, but they're also going to give up 1 million. And I think that's going to be their bigger issue there with everything they gave up. I mean, Kyrie I understand the move for Kyrie, adding a playmaker for Luka, allowing them to have more balance offensively where it's not all on Luka's shoulders to create for everybody. But I just think defensively, they were already bad before all of this. And then they gave away their best defensive players to get Kyrie. I don't know, man. I just think the Kings, at least, it's 3 teams I don't trust. So it's who do I trust the most, I guess, is probably the Kings, just because I feel like they have a good idea of who they are and what they're trying to do. The Clippers are going to have to figure out how to play with Russ now. So they've added a whole new wrench into the good stuff they had going into the All-Star break, where now they got to figure out, how do we incorporate Russ? What's the lineups with him? Does he start? Does he close for us? All of those things and those question marks, and how will it affect Kawhi and PG? They got a lot more questions. The Mavs, I just don't think they have the defense. They're probably the team I trust the least in that 3. So just by default, I have to go with the Kings.
The Kings, interesting. It's hard to shed the baggage of the Kings past. Just you think Kings, and you're just like, there's just no way. But I think you have a solid point. I still, the Clippers, I agree. It made the Russ signing makes no sense. He's like a John Wall type guard that just didn't work. They just tried it. It didn't work. Right. And so it's like, and he's more hard-headed, and the expectations are what they are. I would have thought he would have gone back to Washington. That actually made sense to me. I don't know. But it's tough. I love Kawhi. Like, I love his game. I think Paul George is a bit of a, you don't like to use the word fraud as when you describe something, but I just mean like his basketball skill in the biggest moments, not him personally, blah, but basketball skill. But they're still scary because Kawhi, I think you see him some nights and it's just like, okay, this is still the best guy in the league to me. I mean, it's not every night.
He's a horror villain. Like, right? Like it's like he's Michael Myers. You think you've killed him and he's still coming, and the expression doesn't change on his face or anything like that. Like, I'm with you on that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not, I remember the Raptors winning the finals. Like, I remember that. And I remember how good he was. And it wasn't that long ago. And some nights you see him and you're like, wow. And then other nights you're like, guy's got no lift and his jumper's short and he can't move laterally and guard anymore. And then the next night he comes out and steals the ball. He's got his Kawhi arms, go robot arms going. And so, yeah, they're tough to figure out. Okay. Gun to your head. Who comes out of the West? Really, gun to your head. Who's in the West finals? And then who comes out of the West?
I think we get a Denver-Phoenix West Finals, and I think Phoenix beats them. I think just the offensive power is going to overload the Nuggets defensively. I don't think they have that ability to really defend all of those guys at once, and I think that's going to be a big challenge for them in that series. And I think that, for me, that's why I'm going to go with the Suns are going to move to the NBA Finals. And you like the Suns, or you like the Celtics winning? We're going to hold you to this, by the way. Yeah, no problem. Good luck finding me after this. Kidding, of course. I think I'm going to go the Celtics. If they're fully healthy. Okay. I think, again, the word you said with the Nuggets that was really important was continuity. I think the Celtics will have that more and ready to roll in the finals. It'll be a fascinating series, though. Like, I really think it will be. Yeah. But I just think the Suns are probably a piece short from beating the Celtics.
Well, if that happens, it'll be a fascinating series, really. Okay, we get you out of here with one last question that we ask all of our guests. What are your thoughts on Kyrie Irving?
I think he's a phenomenal basketball player, but doesn't contribute to winning as much as everybody really thinks. I think he is a skilled ball handler in a way of which, like, it's a magician and it's fun to watch in what he does. But I think in the grand scheme of things, when it comes down to winning, he's not dependable. He's not a guy I would want to trust and feel confident. You know, everybody always says, well, the Nets would have won a finals if it wasn't for the pandemic. I'm like, no, there's always something else with Kyrie, and that's the concern for me with that. I mean, his talent on the court, there's no questions about it. It's the stuff there off the court. And then I just think the honest truth is I think he's probably one of those guys that needs to have a good cast around him to be able to win. And I don't think and I guess that's everybody now that I say that out loud. But I don't think he's just really that much of a contributor to winning as much as people think. Like, I think the Nets would have been better off when it came down to it, trading Kyrie and keeping James Harden and making it a James Harden, Kevin Durant core in the long run. And I think they would all still be there right now and hooping. But I think that's kind of my view of it with Kyrie. Fun to watch, but I wouldn't ever want him on my team.
Well, we appreciate that. You know, we ask everybody who we have on here, politics, women talking about sexuality, like we talk about all this stuff, and I ask every single person about Kyrie. So we appreciate it. Mo, you're the king. We're going to link to all your stuff in the bio of the episode. You guys, all NBA fans should check Mo out if you don't already. Great content every single day for the people. And Mo, we appreciate your time, and we hope to talk to you again soon, man.
Yeah, anytime, Joel. I had a good time.
All right, thanks, Mo. Welcome back to If You're Fat, Lose Weight, and we are honored to be joined by one of the great conservative thinkers of our generation, a man who loves NASCAR, Penn State, and religion, so basically the opposite of me, which is good, the managing editor of NewsBusters. You've likely seen him on Newsmax, Fox, and wherever else you consume your conservative media, the great Curtis Houck. Welcome to the show, Curtis. Thank you so much for being here. How you doing today?
Good to be with you, Joel. How are you?
I'm great. I went to Michigan. Just so you know, I used to work in basketball. So, you know, when I say that, and I'm a Jewish atheist, which is a longer story. I was raised Jewish.
My therapist is too, so that's totally fine. And my grandparents met at Michigan, and my mom was born there. So the University of Michigan, I'm the rare Penn Stater who's like, I don't have anything against Michigan because without them, I would not exist.
Well, there you go. And you know what? I'm the rare Michigander who doesn't hate all the other Big 10 or Big 12, whatever it's called now, schools. I really don't care. All of my friends went to, and they're like rooting for these sports teams aggressively, Michigan football, basketball. They live and die for it. I'm from Northern California. My favorite teams are still the Giants, the 49ers, the San Jose Sharks. You know, that's just, I don't know. That's just me. But we appreciate you joining us. It's always important to have these conversations with people that we might disagree on some things, we might agree on some things, but at least we can have the conversation. To me, that's kind of what we are losing in today's media landscape, which is a good lead into before I ask you about a few different specific things. Why don't you tell my audience a little bit about what you do on NewsBusters?
Yeah, so NewsBusters is the main blog of the Media Research Center, which has been around since 1987. So it's been around a good while. And it was started by Brent Bozell and Brent Baker and Larry Gourlay, three gentlemen who still are with the company, to really look at, identify, expose, and correct liberal media bias. They saw at the time that even in the late 80s, you were starting to get some of CNN, but you were really reliant on three networks and the newspapers, and there really wasn't a true media watchdog critiquing, praising, kind of assessing their coverage of mostly political news. So they took it upon themselves to start that, and it was originally a newsletter, physical newsletter, just like a lot of things, and now it's morphed into multiple websites with NewsBusters kind of being the main outfit. And so at NewsBusters, we look at the media left of center media on both a short and long-term basis. We look at what's covered, what's not covered, how things are covered, probably try to give some historical perspective if we can to certain things to kind of throw viewers back to, oh, this reminds us of this, which is really great about the company being been around for so long. We have a huge archive outside of, I believe, one at Vanderbilt University. We have the largest TV database really in the country, if not in the world, because we have videotapes, DVDs, and now we're converting it all to the cloud of shows going back to our founding in 1987. So we get requests from all sorts of folks all across the spectrum because we are a 501c3. That's part of our educational mission to provide people with these clips that, the networks, they have access to their own archives, but really nobody has, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, and then later Fox, MSNBC, all under one roof in various mediums. But we have that institutional, database that we can pull from. And then finally, for myself, what I'm currently doing as managing editor, I edit, I write, I do shows like this one, I appear on TV, and my main beat currently right now is the White House press briefing.
Oh, interesting. So the White House press briefing daily or what are you there every day? Are you covering, asking questions, etc.?
I'm someone who looks at and analyzes both the questions from the journalists themselves and the press secretary, obviously in this case, Karine Jean-Pierre. I've been watching the White House press briefing just about every day they've had it since the last year of the Obama administration. So I've been watching it a number of years now. I've seen multiple people come and go from both, from the podium as well as people in the press corps. And I know based on how a lot of them follow me on Twitter, they'll share my questions of theirs. They definitely, and I've been told by a few that they care about what I say and they care about what I write in terms of, especially because they know I'll be fair. If they ask a really good question or they were respectful in a debate, or, they were just very pointed in the way they asked their question without going on and being laborious, they know that I'll give them a fair shake. And I think that's what's really fun, to promote this kind of idea that there are conservatives out there who believe in the importance of a robust news media.
Yeah.
But we feel like we should, in addition to calling out the bad that we see, also promote this is what it should look like on a daily basis.
Wow, that's great. So are you actually in the room every day, or are you watching the briefing from your study?
I'm watching it, the stream, so I can be able to tweet content right away. Like as the questions come in, we have Snapstream, this company that we use to capture live streams of all the shows and the press briefings with closed captioning. So I'm able to quick turn it around in a couple minutes.
Wow, that's cool. Okay, so since the Obama administration, who was the press secretary when you started?
Josh Earnest. He was there at the end of the Obama administration, now through Karine Jean-Pierre. So we've been through, so there were 4 under Donald Trump.
Yeah,
5,
2.
6, 7. Yeah.
Yep. Right. Okay. So who's your favorite of the 7?
I think I would say definitely, to be fair, I would overall, Kayleigh McEnany, and I also thought Jen Psaki was effective as well, because what both of them were able to do is they took the questions, and even if at the heart of it they didn't necessarily answer the question, they would put some meat on the bones. They would give the reporters something in terms of an answer. Whereas I think sometimes you see with Karine Jean-Pierre, actually quite often, it's just really a whole lot of nothing. She's searching for an answer. She's searching in the binder. She's trying to read from a script, and she's stumbling over that. And I just don't think that's particularly effective. So I think both Jen Psaki and Kayleigh McEnany do a particularly good job, or have done a particularly good job in that regard.
I agree on Jen Psaki. I thought she was great. Like, I just thought, she compared to Karine Jean-Pierre, especially when you watch the difference, it's
interesting because both have TV experience.
Right.
Both have been on TV for a while, so that's why Karine's struggles have been a little surprising.
Yeah, but it's not good though, and it's not good for the administration. I actually kind of liked Sarah Sanders. What's her name? Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Yeah, like I thought she was more effective to me than Kayleigh McEnany. I thought Kayleigh McEnany, and you would know way better because you watch every question. But every time that I saw, and I used to watch, I used to watch a bit. I thought Sarah Sanders, although she's not like smiley and honestly as pretty of a person or whatever, I just thought she was less combative. And what she would say, while I didn't necessarily agree with it, I thought it resonated more. And I thought she was honestly smarter. I don't know if that rings true to you.
I could definitely see that. I mean, it would be close behind Kayleigh, in my opinion. You know, she did have, I would say that, yeah, she's very personable. For someone who's the daughter of a longtime politician and Mike Huckabee, she's been, you know, sometimes you're like, I don't know, is this person kind of awkward or are they going to be entitled? But no, she's done a really good job kind of knowing her audience and really having observed a lot, both from her dad and other people, about how to come across as personable and not seem like you're above the fray. But I would definitely agree with that about your reasoning there.
Interesting. Okay, one quick question about NewsBusters before we move on to why we had you on today. So NewsBusters is only, and I agree, there is definitely a liberal lean to, you know, mass media. Obviously, when your company started, it was a different media landscape. There is now conservative outlets. I would hope you would agree with this. You can tell me if you don't. Where you can go and you can get the conservative media that you're hoping to get. Do you only call out the liberal media, or do you also fact check the other side?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we don't necessarily. We do a little bit, I would say. Like, for example, one of our other sister websites, MRC TV, talked about Project Veritas and James O'Keefe and the moves there. The lack of transparency about why he was let go, some definite concerns there. But, you know, we're really looking at the liberal media because I just think we're still, you know, 4 or 5 of the top 6 biggest networks in this country tilt to the left, in our opinion. So we think it's definitely important to hold them accountable. There are people out there that watch Fox News all day, and that's all they do. So you can kind of then you can get that. But we kind of typically focus on one side or the other. I would say I think the best way for us, for people on the outside to kind of look and see what we think is good conservative media, if you read our website, or we have an editor's pick section of our website where I just put things that I think are interesting or very well done. You know, your quick hits or investigative journalism. You look at the kinds of sites that we cite on a routine basis, and that's a good sign that we think they're reputable based on our actions. And then if you look at sites we're not cited or not citing, ones that we're not mentioning, I think that kind of tells you what we think.
That's interesting. Okay, so Fox News is obviously the most watched network for news, and you said 5 of 6. So you're talking. Let me guess: CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And then Fox News would be the outlier of 5 of 6. It would be one of the 6, but it's also the most watched. Would you? That's a fair.
Oh,
okay.
Of course. Yeah. And I would say, and then it extends to newspapers as well. You think of the biggest newspapers in the country.
Washington Post, New York Times, etc.
The New York Times, the Washington Post, USA Today, and Wall Street Journal. One of them leans a little to the right. Same thing.
And I don't even know if they really lean to the right anymore, honestly. I think they're probably, I don't know, whatever. And that would be the Wall Street Journal. But anyways, okay. So, and then, you know, you can also get Newsmax and OAN and those 2 channels, which are actually becoming, and I've seen you on there, by the way, but they're actually becoming harder to get now. I don't know if it's because of the Dominion lawsuit specifically or what's going to come of that, but, you know, some of these cable providers are choosing to eradicate them from their, package. That they offer, which I think is a slippery slope. But
it is just really quick on that. I think, you know, I've been on both, and I know people at both, and they're phenomenal. Yeah. With OAN, it was definitely about 2020. There wasn't really debate. You know, folks that may not be familiar, there's contracts with these cable companies in each individual channel. It's very similar. You usually hear about this with your favorite sports teams.
Right.
Like when there's a contract that's coming up, you'll get a couple weeks in advance. The contract is up. Apply pressure to, it's usually Dish or DirecTV, to make sure you don't lose, your team. And with Newsmax, that's kind of what happened with Newsmax. Their contract was up, but we didn't really know about their contract situation until a few hours beforehand. Now, fortunately, the First very quickly replaced them, which I also have appeared on as well. There's great people there. It's obviously a much smaller operation than Newsmax, but they have some good folks there. Liz Wheeler, Jesse Kelly, Dana Lash is over there. You can now watch Bill O'Reilly at 8 p.m. Again, if you have DirecTV.
He's back. He's back.
I know. He has No Spin News, so it's very, if you want like a nostalgia trip, you can do that now.
Interesting. Okay, we'll have to check in. We'll have to check in on that. Okay, so I wanted to have you on, and we have to move forward. I'd love to have you back on already and talk more about the media, but I wanted to hit these three points today, and I have a hard stop in 15 minutes. So, first of all, let's talk John Fetterman. And you can correct me at the end if I get any facts wrong from your perspective. For the uninformed, John Fetterman is a Democratic senator from Pennsylvania. He had a stroke, I believe, about a week before the Democratic primary ended, where people were going in to vote. I don't know if it was a week or a few days or even whatever it was. His campaign downplayed the significance of the stroke at that time. He won the primary. They continued to downplay the significance of the stroke that he had throughout the general election campaign. He ran against Dr. Oz, and he was not out on the campaign trail till, let's call it, 6 weeks before the election. I don't know if that's exactly right, but it's basically close enough. The recovery, they kept saying he was recovering, and he put out great little quick Twitter videos that went viral, and his campaign was just excellent at putting out little videos of him or just needling Dr. Oz and really setting him up as somebody from New Jersey who's just, shared none of their values. And they were very good at that. He then he agreed to debate Dr. Oz and had one of the worst debate performances I've ever seen, because he couldn't process the questions, and he obviously couldn't process the questions or his answers. And it was a terrible debate performance, and you don't want to speak negatively of the ill, but it was hard to watch more than just being terrible. I mean, it became abundantly clear for somebody or anybody who's objective, which I consider myself, that he shouldn't be in the position that he was in. He ended up winning the seat. I would say because 4 factors, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, or 5 factors: because of Oz was a bad candidate, because of abortion, because of Trump's presence in the race, because, probably most importantly, because of Shapiro, the governor, the Democratic governor, who's a star in the Democratic Party. And while Oz won while Fetterman won by 1 or 2%, Shapiro won by 10% in his race. And also, by the way, he looks like somebody who's, a hardworking, down to earth type of guy. He assumed his duties in the Senate last month and has been to the hospital twice since then. Once, they say, has nothing to do with his stroke, but for medical reasons. And then once last week because he checked himself in for severe depression. So I just want to know from your perspective, Curtis, like, at what point was this just? What are your thoughts on this whole scenario? Let me say one other thing before I go. If he were to give up his seat, Shapiro, the governor, would be able to appoint somebody. Senate terms are 6 years. 6 years. He'd be able to appoint somebody, and then there would be a vote whenever it would be. So if he were to retire now, the vote would be in 2024 to have the permanent person in the seat. And right now the Senate is 51-49 for the Democrats. So what are your thoughts, Curtis?
Yeah. So first, to your points, that was entirely correct. I'm from Pennsylvania. As I said, I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So I know a lot about this race. I was definitely felt like I was invested in digesting every single little tidbit of this race, because all my family is still back there and my fiance's family is there as well. So, and that's definitely true. Just the unpopularity of Doug Mastriano completely dragged down. I think Shapiro was a heavy favorite to begin with, but that definitely caused down ballot problems because there were a number of toss-up House races as well. There was one for Connor Lamb's seat, the man who ran against John Fetterman and lost, and two close races, one in the Lehigh Valley and one in extreme northeastern PA and the Poconos, that a lot of people would argue were very winnable races, and they were lost because of Doug Mastriano's unpopularity and Oz's reputation as a carpetbagger. It just largely, and he largely won that primary as a result of the support of Donald Trump. Now, for Fetterman was very popular to begin with as the lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania. Right. He kind of, again, he had this folksy aspect to him. He was a supporter of Bernie Sanders. So he kind of similar to Donald Trump, he had a strong base of support to begin with. Mm-hmm. So that was always going to make it difficult for Connor Lamb to come in as kind of the clean-cut former military guy. Yes, Democrats are thankful he won that House seat in that special election. But, in a primary like that where you just have two candidates that are very different, you allow people to really have a good choice and choose, and they chose Fetterman. It was a week before the primary vote that he had a stroke, but it really didn't come out until a couple days, like the weekend before. So there were some questions, number one, about that. How transparent was his campaign? But now, the media definitely had a little bit of a role, I would say, in trying to prop up Fetterman until he started sitting for interviews. You could say that was a huge mistake on the part of his campaign to have him sit for that NBC interview with Dasha Burns. And that's one of the examples that we say, NewsBusters, if you do a good job, if you do a thorough interview, you're not nasty about anything. You're just respectful, and you ask questions that we think normal people would be sitting and watching TV. They would want you to ask. Dasha Burns' interview with Fetterman, with his auditory screen in front of him, with the questions, still did not go well, and the debate performance did not go well. The fact that he still won is just, again, I think it's his win said more about the failure of the PA GOP than I think about Fetterman personally. But what's done is done, and he's in the Senate now. And as somebody who personally has struggled with depression and suicide in my life, it's no joke what's going on. And I think the question that people should be asking, and that I'm personally upset about, is that how did it get to this point with him? Because when you're a candidate, you have a lot of people around you. You have a huge staff around you, especially because it was a statewide race and a Senate seat, no less. People weren't checking in on him that it got to this point. So I think that's important to go forward. And I would just say one aspect that the media missed in this campaign, that the Free Beacon, which I would say is one of the good conservative media websites, had a story that said that the doctor's note that said he had a clean bill of health and that by next year he should be able to resume full activities. That person was a campaign donor. Yeah. And I think that was something that was not missed, that some people may say it's a minor thing. Whether you think it's minor or major, those are just the kinds of little details that we try and look for in media reporting, because at the end of the day, voters should be able to have all facts on the table. And that was not done. So I have questions about that, even more so now. And two, how do we get to this point with him?
Yeah, and to your point about the people propping him up in his election bid, his wife, and it's to me, it's hard. There's a confluence of events that need to happen for somebody like this to be in the Senate, and it's a tough scene for me, and it makes It
says a lot. You have examples on both sides of the aisle, I would say. Dianne Feinstein, who there was a San Francisco Chronicle report last year or the year before that basically says that she'll start a conversation with somebody and she'll forget mid-conversation who she's talking to. Republicans had Thad Cochran from Mississippi a few years ago, very similar situation. But they were already elected. They had been in Congress a number of years. Not saying that's right, but just to lay that on the table, whereas this person was running for office. And that they had a chance to make this change. They had a chance to make this change. So if he does retire, I would say Connor Lamb is definitely somebody to watch for. I think Shapiro likes being governor, and that's something that he's always wanted to do. People have said. At the end of the day, Pennsylvania is a huge state. It's an important state. despite having lost a lot of its population over the years, it's continued to lose House seats in each set of redistricting. It's still one of the largest states in the country.
Yeah. Okay, and just for a note, I'm not trying to minimize anybody's struggle here, and Curtis, thank you for sharing what you shared. I'm not trying to minimize. I feel a lot of compassion for John Fetterman. I don't think somebody like John Fetterman should be a sitting senator for 6 years, especially if we know, and I don't know this, I'm not a doctor, but if we know that this man is going to be struggling with his health, if there are clear signs that he's never going to be able to regain full mental capacity, and maybe he will be able to, but if there are signs, and I feel like we didn't get the full story here, and that's the real problem. And I'm not trying to minimize his struggle, because I'm sure his struggle is real, and I'm sure it's terrible for his family and the whole deal. Mm-hmm. So I just want to be very clear on that. Okay, that was great. Moving on here, we only have 5 minutes, so we'll go quick. George Santos, okay, the representative for the House of Representative member from the 3rd Congressional District in New York. He ran a race and won, and since he won, there has just been I don't know why this wasn't proven before, but there has just been an onslaught of information that's come out that, he lied about. And I'll just I'm going to go through it in 10 seconds, all the things he lied about just from one article. Where he went to college, that he went to prep school, that he worked at banks, that he ran a charity, that he's gay, that he's Jewish, and his parents fled the Holocaust. That he knew victims in the Pulse nightclub shooting, that he owns real estate, that his mother died twice, that his apartment was robbed. He goes by the name George Santos. He used to go by a different name. He may have performed as a drag queen in Brazil. That's a new allegation. Not all of these things that I just read are 100% factual that he lied about for sure. But where there's enough smoke, there's definitely fire here. The construction of the House right now is 222 Republicans, 213 Democrats. What, in your estimation, Curtis, should the Republican Party nationally, because the New York Republican Party has come out and said he should resign his seat. And if he were to resign his seat, there would be a special election, and it is in a Democratic leaning area of the country, and most likely a Democrat would win just based on Santos, what he's done. I mean, the people would wake up and be like, boy, did we make a mistake. That's the common thought process of what would happen if he were to resign. Curtis, go.
Yeah. So first of all, the media angle of it, again, this guy ran in 2020. He lost by a few points for the same seat in 2020. So how this was not caught earlier, that is a huge failure, not just on the part of the NRCC and the Democratic Party, the DCCC, but the news media as well. The New York Times was the one that broke the original story. Where was the New York Times in 2020? Because this guy almost won in 2020. He said as much in a recent interview with Piers Morgan, where he said, I was surprised that I got away with all of this for as long as I did. As in, yes, in 2020. So he thought because he wasn't caught in 2020, he wouldn't be caught now.
Well, he wasn't. He was right.
He wasn't. So he was right. The problem I have is I think the story would not be as big of a deal if the margin for Kevin McCarthy wasn't as slim as it is currently.
Correct.
Because if it were much bigger, the New York Times story would still come out, but it would be goodbye. But I would say that for the GOP, I think a lot of people and a lot of Americans view it just like with Hillary Clinton's classified document scandal. If I took classified information and put it on my server, I would get in trouble. George Santos, if I lied as much as I did about my resume, I would lose my job. But he hasn't.
Right. So, okay, we agree there. See? Common sense should rule the day here. Quickly on two things. 2024, are you supporting Trump? Early indications for yourself?
For me, speaking for myself, we'll have things always change. But if you ask me, like, what would I do right now? Probably not. And Virginia is nice because Virginia is in fairly early primary state.
Got it. So, do you have a candidate that you like?
There's like a couple of people. Obviously, Ron DeSantis is something that a lot of people are interested in. A lot of conservatives, a lot of my friends are interested in. Some people for Nikki Haley as well. Some people about Tim Scott. So that's
Tim Scott's
he's 3 or 4 that are interesting.
Yeah, I'm interested in watching Tim Scott. I think he's an interesting candidate for the Republican Party. I mean, he could have a tremendous flame out, but I'm interested to watch. I'm in Florida. I like Ron DeSantis, what he's done here. I don't like the culture wars that he's decided that he needs to play on now that he's decided he's running for president. My thought process with Trump is he's been a drag on the Republican Party in 2018, 2020, 2022. And I think it's the culmination of 2024 is going to be the culmination. If he wins the primary and he goes against Joe Biden and Joe Biden doesn't fall down the stairs and he can complete sentences in the debates, I think that Joe Biden wins again. If Donald Trump doesn't win the nomination, I think he burns the party down.
I'll just say really quickly on that. The media, from our perspective, the media want a large field because that allows them to clear the field for Donald Trump, because we saw this in 2016. They hammered Rubio, Jeb Bush, the like, Ted Cruz, and they carry Trump rallies. I know they won't do that this time, though.
No, they won't do that this time, but the media definitely he's great for ratings, Trump. I think he's bad for the country personally. I could support another Republican. I could see myself doing that personally as a centrist. I would never support him. But, I think it's interesting times. To your point, the Democrats, after South Carolina, coalesced around Joe Biden. You had Buttigieg drop out. You had Klobuchar drop out. Not that they necessarily would have been threats, but they got behind Biden to prevent Bernie Sanders from getting the nomination. It would behoove the Republican Party, from one person who is an admitted stupid person, me, it would behoove the Republican Party to do the same and coalesce around a DeSantis or even Tim Scott, but I think more likely DeSantis, and have the primary field cleared before people start voting. But we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it'll definitely be interesting to see, and who knows? Yeah, you never know. If we've learned anything in the last 5-6 years.
All right, Curtis, you're the man. Thank you very much for coming on. I'd love to have you back on another time here in the near future, and we can talk about other things, because you're an interesting guy, and I think you call it how you see it, and we need more of that. So thank you very much for your time. And, we'll post it and we'll link all your stuff, and everybody check out Curtis's stuff, and we'll post it on Friday, and it'll be all good. So thanks again, Curtis.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Joel. Hope to be back again soon.
Okay, we're back with Rapid Fire with Oliver Abelson. Oliver, how you doing today?
Good.
Wonderful. Okay, your cousins from Denver, Colorado say, who is your favorite cousin and why?
All of them.
All of them. Oh, that's a nice answer. From Uncle Fot, also from Denver, Colorado. Who smells worse, your mom or your dad?
My dad.
That's what, really?
Yeah.
That's a tough break for me. Also from Uncle Fot from Denver, Colorado. Why is your Uncle Fot such a better athlete than your dad?
Because you got so mad in that wrestling match with your other brother, and then you threw the mattress out of.
Oh, that was when they were wrestling at Grandma's house, naked. And it was Uncle Ned versus Uncle Fot.
Yeah.
And then Uncle Fot was losing, and he threw Uncle Ned's mattress out of the house at 3 a.m. onto the street. Yeah, that was funny. Okay, also from your cousins from Denver. Can I get a ooh yeah?
What?
That's what they want you to say that.
Can I get a ooh yeah?
Nice. All right, anything else you want to say to the people?
All
right, Jade. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks.